Box Office Top 10, produced by our good friends at Comscore. Number 84, The More.
Yeah, I mean, it's a small release, obviously, but I thought it was very, very moody, very sort of big on atmosphere, a good homemade chiller with some very creepy moments.
Number 27 is Arcadian.
And you put me on the spot last week because you said, why is it called Arcadian? And of course,
Yes.
it occurred to me that one of the things that's different between you and me is that I quite often don't think about what a film is called. I just go, I know that's what it is. In fact, in my head, this is probably called Arcadian Soho Screening Rooms 10 a.m. Wednesday, because and then I just start watching the film. Arcadian, relating to or constituting an ideal rural paradise is what I should have said. But of course, being an idiot, despite the fact I've got a PhD in English, I didn't know what it meant. But it's a sort of post-apocalyptic monster movie, which is at its best when you don't see the monsters. The most low-key Nick Cage performance I've seen in quite a long time.
Keyfinder on YouTube says, the movie sucks. I hated it. It's boring, slow. Cage looks haggard even when he's supposed to be 20 years younger. Character development is slop from bad writers. Acting sucks and is self-conscious. Not scary. Cheesy special effects on a shoestring budget. If they'd spent as much on the monsters as they did on Cage's salary, it would have been a better film. So
yeah, but other than that,
he had a good time. Number 11, Star Trek III, The Search for Spock, the 40th anniversary 4K reissue.
The film that is meant to be disproving the maxim about the even numbers are the good ones and the odd numbers are the bad ones, which of course doesn't hold up. Although it's quite nice. I never thought this was a bad film. I don't quite understand why people did. I always thought it was a fine Star Trek film, but I don't know. Maybe I just liked the idea of the mind meld with human bones. Anyway, I enjoyed it, and it's good to see that people have gone back to see it in the cinema.
That's number 11. I skipped over Texas Chainsaw, by the way, which is at 15. But anyway, so that's.
Why'd you do that? I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Why'd you skip over that? That's a great film.
Because in the chart it's not there, but in the second chart it is. So it's not in one bit, and it is in the other bit. Freud's Last Session is at number 10.
So much acting, so much acting, and a kind of observer notes to Freud's views on death, religion, and the presence or absence of God. I mean, it's fine, but it is absolutely acting heaven.
Wilding is at number 9.
This is a documentary. I haven't seen this, actually. This is a documentary about the rewilding project at the Nep Estate in West Sussex, and I'll try and check it out over the weekend because I've heard good things about it. If you are interested in rewilding, then apparently this is balm for the soul.
That sounds a weird movie to be in the box office top 10 above Star Trek III, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So a documentary about wilding in West Sussex.
Rewilding, yeah. Which is a bit. It's a big thing at the moment. Rewilding is a really big thing. I mean, I'm in Cornwall, and just up the way from where we are, there's quite a big rewilding project going on. It is definitely of the moment.
Sure, but you'd imagine it might be a Channel 4 documentary or something like that, rather than a movie hit.
As you'll discover as we speak later on about why it is that certain movies are being released at the moment, there is a really strange thing going on in UK cinemas, that there is something of a dearth of movies that are packing out cinemas. It's a very, very strange period.
Okay. Fall Guy is at number 8. It's also number 8 in the States.
I enjoyed it very much. Thought it was a great popcorn movie. Spoke to somebody just yesterday who'd seen it and said, "Why are people down on this film?" And I don't know. I mean, it's in its 7th week in the chart, so it is holding on in there.
The Watched is at number 7,
aka Watchers. Kind of perfectly fine Shyamalan light production. Nothing particularly new, but nothing particularly terrible about it. Weird that it wasn't preview screened, way ahead of release, because it's okay. It's fine.
Number 6 here, 7 in the States. Furiosa, a Mad Max saga.
I was at the BFI IMAX on Monday doing an MK3D show, and there was a massive, massive poster for Furiosa, which of course they were playing in the IMAX there, and I said, "How's it going down?" And they said, well, people who come to see Furiosa on the IMAX screens have all been absolutely knocked out by it. So again, I think probably that sort of, the slightly lukewarm feeling is certainly the people that have got the most out of it saw it on a massive, massive screen. Again, I thought it was really decent. I think Anya Taylor-Joy is terrific, and I like the fact that it has breathing spaces in it.
Number 5 is the Garfield movie.
And there we are. Well, look, it was half term a little while ago,
That's
and
true.
so it had its moment in the sun. But yeah, a top 5 film right now is the Garfield movie.
Number
Oy, oy, oy.
4 and number 3 in the States is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Well, I've been corrected on this by child number 2. First hour isn't slow. First hour is world building. And Dad, shut up. What do you know?
If is it number 3?
I think you and I are on the same page with If, is that there are things about it that we like, and and it's got some good ideas. It's not the film. It's not as good as it should be. When you're talking about imaginary friends, it sort of lacks magic. But again, it's found an audience. Again, obviously there was half term recently, but it's doing all right.
The number 2 and number 1 film in America and Britain is the same. Number 2 is Bad Boys: Ride or Die.
Yeah, well, this is exactly as we said in the review. This is why you get another Bad Boys movie, because the numbers add up.
Yes,
they do make money. I mean, the one before was was a huge success. Interesting that it's behind Inside Out 2, although of course that's because partly anyone can go and see Inside Out 2, and Bad Boys: Ride or Die is a different. I didn't think that anybody in the world needed or wanted a new Bad Boys movie, but from the box office sums, okay, that's why.
And number 1 is Inside Out 2. So let me do some correspondence here. Annika says, "Good doctors, I'm writing about one of my favourite cinema experiences ever. This Saturday afternoon, as a family of 4, including an 8-year-old and a 3-year-old,
right,
we ventured to a world of cine conveniently located in Sheffield. I had seen Inside Out 1 at the cinema, pre-kids, and had... Do you remember a character called Bing Bong?
Yeah, in the first film, yeah.
Yeah, anyway, Annika says I had a Bing Bong related meltdown during that trip. Although this movie was missing a character as lovable as Bing Bong, the whole family still laughed wholeheartedly throughout, particularly at Riley's computer hero crush and his lame attack moves. This is a movie loved by kids, but made more for the adults. In a week of work and personal stress, with anxiety taking over, Joy explaining that she doesn't know how to get rid of anxiety, and that maybe when you grow up, you just feel less joy. Seeing this film couldn't have been more appropriately timed. We held our children in cuddles as they laughed and we cried. After the film, I spoke to my 8-year-old and explained that was exactly how I had felt over the previous week, that anxiety was taking over and I just needed to cry, laugh, or scream. We needed emotions like sadness, joy, and anger. He understood, and I'm grateful to Pixar for making something so complex, so relatable." Also, an email from Karenza Stratton, age 13 and a half. "Dear Fear and Loathing, I am a first-time emailer but a long-time listener. My dad has made me listen to most of the episodes and I started to listen to them." So she's 13 and a half, right? Thank you for emailing, Karenza. "My family and I have just been to watch Inside Out 2 and all thoroughly enjoyed it. Unfortunately, we had a bit of havoc getting into the Norwich View cinema, as my older sister had accidentally booked tickets for the Leicester View cinema, which they were really good at handling, and we were able to receive a full refund. But after much toil, we were able to take our seats. Although my dad and mum were a few seats away from my sister and I, we still had an amazing time. As a 13-year-old girl myself, I understood things that Riley felt. A rapid change and feeling things that you can't voice is a challenging experience. It was visually stunning and a truly breathtaking experience. The previous evening, we watched the first Inside Out film, which my family and I all agree is better, but Inside Out 2 is still a fantastic creation of Pixar's. Both my older sister and I cried, which is something I normally do not do whilst watching films, apart from Titanic. Thank you so much for reading. We love your laughter lift. Down with anxiety and up with joy." Karenza Stratton, 13 and a half. Karenza, the laughter lift is on the way. But anyway, Inside Out 2 is at number 1.
Well, look, it's wonderful to hear that response. I mean, my feeling about Inside Out 2, and I like it very much, the issue partly is that I think Inside Out is perfect. And as I said last week, there are very few films that are perfect. I think David Cronenberg's Crash is perfect. I think the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is perfect. I think that Some Like It Hot is probably perfect. It's the films in which there is literally nothing wrong with them at all. I think in the case of Inside Out 2, saying that it's not Inside Out is a bit like saying, well, yeah, okay, but then, not everything can be Citizen Kane. But what I loved about those emails, and particularly that second email, is that sense of connection that the film is having. When I watched it, I wondered whether, it's probably makes sense that a film about the complexities of adolescence is more complex than a film about the emotional, roller coaster of childhood. But it does seem from both of those responses that people have had absolutely no trouble just clicking into that complexity. And honestly, if the film has managed to do that and work across the board, then that's a real achievement.
Here's an interesting email still on Inside Out 2, and it's an anonymous email. Simon Mark, this film is a revelation. My son is 15 and has autism and learning difficulties. Our home life is hijacked on an almost daily basis by his anxiety. He sees even mild criticism like, "Can you do the dishes like I asked you?" as a personal attack, and will have a meltdown. I've taught him coping strategies. Exercise is the most effective, but this is exhausting, as you can imagine. I've tried so many times to explain that anxiety is the problem, but until now it went over his head. We went to see Inside Out 2 together, and it turned out to be an amazing parenting tool. First of all, the hijacking of Riley's emotions HQ by the anxiety character spoke to me and made me feel understood. This is what I see all the time.
Yeah.
To say I know how Joy felt being chucked out of the console room was an understatement, to say the least. But the film came into its own as a way to discuss my son's anxiety with him. I was able to ask him questions that he understood, such as, which character was at your console when I told you to play football to calm down just before we came to the cinema, and discussing how useful it is to have sadness take over from anxiety. He did not play football but had a good cry, then announced happily, "I'm calm now, Mum." Sadness is more likely than anxiety to then let joy back in. Well done, Pixar, for giving me a very concrete way to help my son navigate this stage in his life. And that email, just thank you very much for sending that email, just made me think. I remember when the first one came out, we were talking about they've clearly got their neurology right. And clearly the neurology is right on this one, because the experience of families going to this movie sounds extraordinary.
Yeah, and I would say that email that you've just read out, I mean, that is more important than what any film critic thinks, and that is a perfect example of the film working absolutely brilliantly. I mean, what a wonderful email! What a fantastic story! And again, I'm sorry, I'm going to do it again. It is the Ebert thing about empathy. It is, cinema is about life itself. Cinema it is a part of a conversation that we all have about how do we negotiate our way through life. And that idea of the thing about anxiety literally hijacking the concept of the wrecking crew coming in, knocking everything out, that is it. And if that then gives you a language with which to have those discussions, then, well, there's no higher art. That's the pinnacle of what cinema can do.